This is across the board the number one mistake that I see job applicants make. It blows my mind still that they don't pause to say,
hi, everyone. Today's guest is Charlie Hoehn. He's an author and a speaker. The reason why we have Charlie today is because I think it's very important to help young Africans get better at thinking entrepreneurially. Very important. You know, my husband and I, we have a school, and it's called the Socratic Experience. And that's really what we do there. We help young people learn to think entrepreneurially. This is very important for young people all around the world, and of course, in Africa as well. And so in today's conversation, you'll learn about how can someone bootstrap themselves to an income? How can someone overcome the fact that they don't have a degree and they don't have what they don't have an experience either? How someone can bootstrap their way to a job without having a degree and without having experience. Charlie's going to talk to us about how that works, and it actually also can work in Africa. It works everywhere. We also are going to hear about how do you think about this concept of value. And so this is the conversation we're going to have with Charlie, especially for people who are interested in being in the digital world. This is a super, super exciting conversation. I walked away being just so fired up. It's giving me so many great ideas as to how we can help support you all better, further going forward. So enjoy, have fun with it. First things first, Charlie, I know your story, but I always like for people to be able to tell their own story. So can you share with us what's your story and how you've bootstrapped your way to where you are now, being the digital, marketing expert that you are?
Yeah, for sure. So the story really began in 2008, where I was laying on the floor of my parents' basement, the bathroom in my parents' basement, and I was just like pulling my hair out because I just spent 3 months applying for jobs and getting no responses. So I'd applied to over...
Were you out of college by then, or?
I had just graduated from college, and it was the recession. And so the company I'd interned for, they were like, hey, we're potentially shuttering. We're closing down.
Wow.
And so I didn't have very many prospects. And I remember just laying there because I was like, I've applied to over 100 jobs. There was no click to apply, or one-click application stuff back then. So, and I'd applied to over 100 jobs. I'd heard back from 2, and one was a pyramid scheme, and the other was like a manual labor job, which is fine. Like, I don't have any judgments against it, but it was like, well, why did I go to college? What? So I was just laying there being like, I think all the traditional advice about how to get a job might be totally wrong. At the very least, like what I've been told of, write a cover letter, send in a resume, rinse and repeat. It's a numbers game. That's not true. It's just not. It's not effective. Even if it is true, it's like it's got a 1% hit rate for responses. Like, that's bad. Right. So I kind of made a decision then that I have to try something totally new. Einstein's definition of insanity, right? So I have to try something totally new, because what I really wanted was I wanted to do fulfilling work. I wanted to work on something that mattered to me and that I was excited to do, and that I didn't care too much at that point in my career about whether I got paid a lot. It just was like, I just want to be doing something that doesn't feel like I'm totally compromising my values, my soul, my heart. Like, I want to be aligned with what I'm doing and do what I believe in. And I want to have it ideally be something fun and enjoyable, right? Something that doesn't feel like work, that feels more like play. And so I told my parents, if I can't get something going within like the next 60 days, I'll get like an oil landman job, basically.
Wow.
Which pays a lot. And my dad, is kind of in that industry. So he knew contacts that could give me a high paying job, but I was like really scared to potentially get that. But what I started doing worked. And within like a handful of weeks, I started getting really positive responses from really high level people, best-selling authors, really high level entrepreneurs doing interesting things. And all I did was I would reach out to them and say, I love what you're doing. I'm a fan. I noticed that you could get even better results in this area, or there's potentially, this area looks like it's problematic for you. It might be time consuming, costly, whatever. This is an area that I specialize in, and I can help you with it. And I'll do it for free. So we'll do a free trial. If you don't like my work, please throw it away. You don't have to oversee me or anything. But if you do, let's talk about how we can work together in a more formal arrangement moving forward. P.S. Here's a sample of my work. Or P.S. I actually did some of the work already. Take a look. And that worked super well. Wow. And there's a number of reasons it worked really well. For one, for starters, I was actually like an expert in the things that I was offering to help with, right? So expert is, on a scale, right? But I was better than them at the thing that I was offering to help with. So like video editing, I could handle YouTube channels and stuff back then, and I knew how to create videos. And so that's what I was doing. And within a short period, I was working with Ramit Sethi, who just recently was the host of the top 10 Netflix show, How to Get Rich. I began working with a guy named Tucker Max, who at the time his book had been turned into a movie. So he and I I ended up going on a movie tour around the country with him as his videographer, and then ended up working with Tim Ferriss, the author of the 4-Hour Workweek, and did some free trial work, and then it turned to paid, and then he offered me a full-time role as his first full-time employee. And then he and I worked together for 3 years, and would touch base and work on little things here and there. Since then, Tucker and I worked together for over a decade in various capacities. Ramit was, he and I worked together on a number of projects helped him launch his book. We ended up creating an iPhone app together. And it was really cool. Just by the way, I was the one who told him, you need to get on YouTube. You need to do video. You have a good personality. Like he was just a writer and a blogger. And I was like, you're actually really entertaining on video. A lot of good things could happen. And so 15 years later, he's got his own hit Netflix series, which was really cool to see. So that's kind of a condensed, distilled version of what happened. And I ended up writing a book called Recession Proof Graduate. And the book went viral because I gave it away. And Seth Godin promoted it, Ramit promoted it, and it ended up getting downloaded about 250,000 times. Wow. And it just kind of catalyzed for a lot of people who I've heard from, including billionaires, who are like, "Hey, I did that. That's how I started my career." Interesting. And I've heard from so many people who've gone on to do really great things that I used free work to leverage myself and open doors that didn't exist for me.
No, that's to me, that's the most important point of what I like about your background, this concept of prove yourself first, because especially nowadays, we can be in societies where, when you see that even internships, we have gotten to a point where internships have to be paid. Well, what happens is a lot of people are being left out, because if I, as an employer, I'm going to have now to pay for someone that may not have a whole experience. Back in the good old days, it was I help you gain experience, and you provide you helped me in exchange with your, with the work that you're doing, and it was a fair trade. But with people who think that they're helping young people and saying internships have to be paid because this is exploitation, that's a complete wrong way to think about it. So it's really interesting to me that you're making this very clear, because I do think that especially young people, because for me here we're talking about trying primarily to help young people think in an entrepreneurial way and think about ways that they can really make themselves stand out in the crowd. So it's very interesting that on one end you have this push for paid internships, and you're saying no, show your value, give it for free to start with, and people will pay you for it going forward. That's really interesting. And then, and we'll go more into that because I want to unpack the whole concept of value and how you see that. But before that, one of the questions I have for you, Charlie, is, whether you are a young person here in the US or any other developing nation, like rich nation, prosperous nation, or you are somewhere in Africa, in one of the poorest countries in the world, and you are a young African person who's like, I am in age of having a job. I want to have a job. I need to provide for myself. How do I get out of all of this? I hear what Charlie is saying. Find someone and reach out to them. But even there, how do you make sure that you're picking the right person to support and not just some jerk that's just going to use you up? I know I just talked about exploitation, but about how do you go about that? How do you go about knowing that this is somebody that's worth spending time on and showing what I can do for free in the first place? How do you do that?
Yes, I love it. So I have kind of a more formal set of criteria, but basically I break it down. Are they aligned with you professionally and personally? So professionally, I think the simplest way to think about the types of people or organizations that you work with, let's just say people for simplicity's sake, is do they have the life that I want to have? Do they have the career that I want to have? Have they accomplished the types of things that I want to accomplish myself? A good example of this is Ryan Holiday working with Robert Greene. Robert Greene and Ryan write very similar books, but now Ryan is firmly solidified as his own style of author. But he went to apprentice for Robert Greene because he was like, look, you write these masterpiece books. How do you do it? I will work for you for free. I will research for free. And that intrinsic motivation, that internal, I want this because it's a deep desire of mine. I want to become like you, I think is the best place to start, really. Once you go from there, I think the next best place to start is are they financially successful? Can they realistically pay me right now? And if not, can I create so much value with them that they could pay me a ton or even give me a percentage of their company, right? So an example of that might be there was a guy named Robert Koo who loved this website called, I think it was Penny Arcade. And Penny Arcade wasn't doing so great because it was run by creatives and who just didn't really understand business super well. He came to them and he's like, look, I made a business plan for Penny Arcade to take you guys to a higher level. Bring me in to execute this thing for 60 to 90 days. And if it works, make me the CEO. Make me an owner and partner in the company. If it doesn't work, we walk away. You guys are right where you left off. Right. And so you kind of have to think of that next, right? Is first intrinsic motivation. I would say probably second is their mission and purpose, is it values aligned with the kind of work that you want to be doing? And then third is, can they pay you well? And can you make the type of money that you want to make with them? And can you work for a long time? And then it gets into sort of these squishier kind of social things. Could I see myself going out for a round of drinks with this person and really enjoying myself? Could I see myself traveling with them for a week and really enjoying our company and our time together? If Those are no's. It might be like, you might want to keep this at a distance, purely remote, not interact, right? And so I kind of walk people through, like, there's a bunch of criteria, but I think that's the 80-20. If you nail those, is this person doing what I want to be doing? Can they pay me? And would I like spending time with them and being friends with them effectively? You're in a good spot.
That's very interesting. So now, let me take you into a context and see if you think this could still apply. Because for my young African, people listening, and I call them the cheetahs, basically, Charlie, what you're talking about, does it work when you are in an environment where, jobs are really scarce, right? Because you talked about when you're in the US, you were sending all of these, resumes and only 1% got back. But is it because there was really no jobs out there, or because maybe the system you were using was just outdated? But let me go back to this thing where, okay, you're in an environment where there is literally one of the biggest problems is the lack of jobs in the first place. Then people will add on top of that, yes, and also what you've been learning in school is completely outdated, right? So there is this issue of even what people are learning in school, even if there was 10 million jobs available, which we don't have, what they're learning in school doesn't seem to be relevant to the modern world we belong to, right? And I think we're seeing this issue everywhere, where it seems like school is you put in very original people in on the one end, and then they all come out formatted the same way, but facing a world that's so diverse. And anyway, so not only for the few who were lucky to go to school, their education seems to be not even in line with what the modern world needs. And even if it was in line with what the modern world needs, they are in places where we don't have enough jobs to go around for everybody. And on top of that, add the fact that, when I hear you say, I wanted something that feels like play rather than work, like a place where so many of these kids would probably have gone. I mean, I'm with you on that. But a place where so many of the youth would have been like, oh, my dad can get me the job at the oil thing, I'm going. And I can be paid so much, I'm going. So a place where people are like, I'll take any job. And also the more money it makes, the better it is. So where it doesn't seem like the criterias of alignment with this person's values or this company's values, alignment with, what is it that personally I'm excited about, when the need and the scarcity is so big that you're just like, all of those consideration really don't. So does it work for someone who is in that situation?
Yes. So there's a handful of things. So I'll try and unpack them one at a time. So let's start first with, hey, the oil job that pays a lot of money, I'll take that. I don't care about like necessarily these values things and does the work feel like play, etc. Yes, it depends on where you are with sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Where if it's like money super scarce and therefore certain areas of my life are in a deficit and I have to focus on those and take care of those first. Yes, absolutely. Be where you are. There's nothing like, there's no judgment there. I came from a place of like, I didn't have to, I was fortunate in that I had enough of a financial runway but it was like, it was running out. Right. So that said, the strategy though still does work because
that's what I was going to say. So how does it, yeah.
Strategically, all I'm doing really, if you think about it, is I'm being empathetic for an employer and putting myself in their shoes and speaking to their needs first. The problem that so many job seekers have, I speak to veterans in the military and they say effectively the same thing, which is I have all these skills that don't apply in the real world in normal jobs. I fired rockets and, it's like, how do I tell that story? And what I tell them is like, don't start with yourself.
Mm.
Start with the person or the organization that you want to work with first and empathize with what their problems are and their challenges are and how you can grow them rather than I need to get a job. Let me convince you and persuade you and manipulate you into thinking that I'm the right person to hire, even though I'm not talking about your needs at all. This is across the board the number one mistake that I see job applicants make. It is so consistent. It blows my mind still that they don't pause to say, I spent an hour reading everything I could about your mission and what you've been doing over the last 12 months, and I'm just blown away. But I also saw some huge areas for improvement and opportunity for you to grow your bottom line or to whatever. Here are my ideas. What do you think? Let's talk about them. No one does this. No one.
You are so right. You are so right. So that's a really great piece of advice. And then I'm going to add more difficulty to the layer, right? One layer of difficulty to the situation. So still, taking you into the context of that, African, young African person or African person in general needing a job in a place where if you don't have many jobs going around, then okay. You are going to be empathetic to this person that you're trying to get a job with. You're going to try to look into this person's work life, and see how you can make that better. So they realize they need you, right? And eventually at some point, and you show it to them for free to start with, because we all know everybody prefers to try before they buy. I think we all can get that. When I'm in Senegal and trying to buy a mango from, you have all of these people trying to compete for your attention because they're all selling the same thing. I'm not necessarily interested in the person who's going to sell me the cheapest mango, but the way I usually choose my lady is the one who is going to say, I can have you try it right now. Like she'll get a mango, wash it in front of me, cut a slice and give it to me. And then I prefer that than even the person who says you can come back to me if it was not good. Her right there, it's right there. So this is pretty much what you're talking about, and it makes so much sense because if you remove the obstacle to me making a decision, why it's right there. I know. So anyway, so now let's say yes, I get that part of it, but now. What if I feel like I am in a field, I am surrounded, I am in a culture where everybody only cares about my degree? And sadly, I had to stop school in middle school. I stopped going to school for my francophone people who are listening francophone side. Maybe when you went CM2 or CM1 or even au collège So how do you feel like this strategy can still work when you're in an environment where the role of diploma matters so much? It's almost like diploma replaces whatever expertise one can have. What if you're in an environment, in a culture where the other side, so you have this kid, this young person who is looking for work and totally is on board with you with everything you're saying, he or she definitely has skill sets that might not be, on a degree or on a resume, but then they're dealing with people who are always like, show me the degree, show me the degree. How do you do that? And also in some situations you have not only show me the degree, but on top of that, I want to see that you have, 5 years of experience. I mean, in some places, that's what you need to even get an internship that's not even paid. So how do you think someone in an environment like that should tackle the situation, knowing that there's always a way out of something and knowing that not everybody's the same way everywhere? So what would be your strategy on that, Charlie? Or how do we go? What would Charlie say?
Yeah. So just to confirm, most African nations are this way, Magatte, that they heavily weigh the high school diploma.
Especially, I mean, it depends. It varies depending on which countries you are. I would say that I believe that in a lot of Anglophone African nations, I think they have a better view. I mean, they're better about that than most Francophone nations are. I mean, Francophone nations, I can tell you, this is something you see in France a lot as well. I mean, we inherited a lot from France, which was the colonizer. And this is definitely a way of thinking. This very way of top down, show me your diploma, is very much, Francophone Africa. Some other countries do better, but we are, and a part of me wonders if it's just because the jobs are so scarce anyway, that, employers are pretty much putting all types of guarantees on their side. If, of course, you consider a degree to be a guarantee, because I don't, but maybe they just get to be like, okay, we're not going to take a chance on anybody. They not only have to have a degree, but on top of that, they have to have X years of experience. And they're just basically, it's like, show me all the guarantees.
I think you just hit upon the dynamic that's happening, which is show me. Don't tell me what you can do. Show me. And this is like a minimal hurdle if they have nothing to show. If the applicant has nothing to show, they're like, can you at least show me that you've been able to get through a certain level of schooling and that you're not totally green, right? You're not totally new. When they're asking those questions, they're not actually saying, I really value high school diplomas. They're saying, I am trying to mitigate my risk. I need to know that I'm not dealing with a complete beginner amateur here that is a risk to my business, who could crater my business by making mistakes, who I have to spend a ton of time coaching. Yeah. These costs of hiring employees are very high.
Especially with us. With us, much higher than in the US.
Right.
Because if you end up with a wrong person, it's very hard to say, okay, this is not working, we need to split.
Totally. Yeah.
Hard.
So having to replace a good employee is super expensive. Having to recruit and find and go through the time of not just multiple rounds of interviews and vetting and then onboarding and then coaching for months to make sure they're up to speed. And then finally they get going. And then sometimes, something happens and they'll quit. And it's like, So when employees say that, that's what they're really getting at, I believe, is like, do you have a minimal level of credentials you can show us to show that you're not a risk? And so that's why I emphasize, like, it's important to have, a showcase of some sort where you can say, look at the quality of my work. There's never been a photographer ever who's been asked for their high school degree. Ever.
That's very true.
Because it's like, show me you're good at what you do. I have a friend who does not have a degree in architecture or engineering, but he's literally built buildings. And he's been hired to do so because he can point and be like, I built that and I built that and I built that. And he gets approached now by like these major builders. And so I think it's like, look, this is another benefit to doing free work is you can build your showcase, your portfolio. When you go off and assign yourself a project, and you're like, even if this person doesn't like this and they don't take it, now I have something to put on a website and be like, I did this as an experimental project. And, these were the results. This is how I helped a student who was in university who said his dream job was to work with SpaceX. And he didn't have the credentials. He didn't have enough degrees to work at SpaceX. And so I said, okay, here's what you're going to do. At the time, SpaceX was learning how to land rockets, for the first time so that they could be reusable, which was like mind blowing. And so I said, you're going to do this as a project. You're going to try and create this on your own with model rockets. And all you're going to do is document your process and your results, even if they're a total failure. This guy almost got hired by SpaceX for that. He told me there was the only reason I did multiple rounds of interviews with them where they would have ignored me is because I had that project. And so, yes, you can absolutely get around degrees. It is just a matter of being able to show people I have done an interesting thing that was hard, and I did it at a level of excellence that's worth talking about. And it demonstrates, it signals and proves that I am not a risky bet, that I can do this for you too.
No, that's great, because it's definitely true. I've been very much wondering about how do you think that somebody should begin to think about this idea of adding value, because that's really what we're talking about, right? So, so again, if we're talking, this idea of adding value, how does someone who maybe that's not something that they've been thinking about, because again, you're in an environment and the education system tells you that all you have to do is get the degree. And once you get the degree, it's going to start to open doors. But I feel that in situations like that, we never talk about value. We don't understand that the degree is not the value. Wrong. Degree is not the value. And entrepreneurs, businesses in the real world, it's all about value. The reason why a business gets paid is because value. When you're driving, even people who are driving cars, in Senegal, many people are driving a car and taking people from point A to point B. That's right there, a value that you're doing with them. But I think as soon as we get out of some very clear-cut situations where, okay, this is a value and this is what you get, people have a hard time thinking about, especially when it comes to digital work, maybe. So how could you... is there something more that you want to say about how people think about adding value, especially when it comes to getting digital work maybe done, or physical work, I guess?
Absolutely. So, and the crazy thing as well, I went to business school and they never defined what value was,
right?
or like how to create it.
Yeah, exactly. But value is what's going to get you hired or not, what's going to get you somebody to want to be to co-found something with you. It's what it is. It's not so much the money is what people think of, but value is what we're trading with one another.
Yes. Yeah. So I like to think of it, and I'm totally stealing this from a guy named Alex Hormozy, but he came up with a value equation, which is it's dream outcome times the perceived likelihood of achievement divided by time, effort, sacrifice, and minus money, basically, or times money. So basically it's like, are you going to get them a dream outcome? And how much is it going to cost them in terms of their energy and their time and their money? And people think like, oh, I'll just focus on like the dream outcome up here. Where you really ought to focus is taking away all of their time, energy, and money. That's why I advocate for free work, because it's like, that's the thing that like stops people a lot from getting what they want, is just how much work and energy goes into it. And so a story I really love about this is a guy named Bas Ording, who he applied to Apple back in the day and he just bombed. The HR didn't like him. He walked out feeling dejected and just was like, I blew it. Yeah. And, or I'm sorry, did I say Bas Ording? Oh, okay. My bad. So he walks out and he runs into Steve Jobs in the hallway. And he goes up to him and he's like, Steve, it was great to meet you. Can I just show you something real quick? And Steve's like, okay. And he pulls out his laptop and he pulls out this demo. And it's, on Macs where you hover over the app icon and it magnifies it. Yeah. It was that. And Steve Jobs goes, my God. And he hires him right on the spot. Okay. Right. Yeah. And he hires him on the spot. And Bas Ording goes on to be one of the top designers ever at Apple. He created the iPhone keyboard design. He created all these, he created the rubber band effect, when you're loading your mail and it snaps, and it's like all these intuitive things. And that's value, because for Steve Jobs, the dream outcome is to delight the end user and to have it be so intuitive that even a child could understand it. And to make things so easy and simple and obvious and intuitive. And so he needs people like that. That's the dream outcome. But Bas took away all the money in developing that, all the time, all the sacrifice, all the thought and that goes into it. He just demonstrated it, right? And so he gets the job. And I could tell you 30 more stories like this, but I know we're limited on time. But it is the truth, where it's like, look, there is nothing stopping a young person from going out and creating value, from saying, I want to work with that person or with that company. What are they doing right now? What is the dream outcome they seem to be moving toward in all their efforts? They have a digital trail where they're telling you, this is what I'm working on. This is what we're working on. This is what we're trying to build. This is it. They'll say it in their mission statement and in their values. What is to stop you from going off and creating something that could be interesting to them? I helped a guy who wanted to work for Google. He wanted to be a user interface and user experience designer. He didn't have a degree. And so I said, why don't you make a product for Google? Why don't you make something that they would find interesting? And so he spent like 50 hours developing what he called Google Hobbies. And I said, it has to be a GIF. It has to be like, or a movie, a demo that they can actually see. And so he developed this interface. He got, I think 5,000 people read his post about how he did it in the first 24 hours. He got over a dozen job offer or like interview offers and interviewed with Google. He wasn't experienced enough to go work at Google, but he ended up getting hired at a company in Austin and is currently a UX UI developer. And so no degree, just went out and created value, created an idea and brought it into the world. And there's nothing stopping anybody from doing that if they want to.
No, and I love those stories, those examples, because such great examples of, you're right, there's nothing stopping people. And I think the biggest thing stopping people is people themselves. And so maybe the last thing in this one is, and I think you touched upon it, is because as you were talking, especially, like, hey, approach it as a project, almost like do the work and then send it to these people. And then in countries like the US, then I'm just, again, putting you into the head of my young African. Yes. They hear you, like, oh, this sounds great. But not here, Charlie, not here. Do you know what's going to happen if it was here? Well, they would steal the idea and then run with it, and I never get any credit for it. And I would say to them, it does happen in this country as well. There are some shady people everywhere. But then as you were talking about the last example, because I think this is something we should help people think about as well. You are oftentimes in cultures, back to where I'm from. I mean, oftentimes I've been talking to people about great ideas, because I'm actually looking for people to join me on that idea, whether it's I'm looking to hire people or I'm looking to solve a specific issue with, my issue, with what I'm working on. You've got to talk to people because that's, we got to share ideas. And everyone's like, you should not be talking to anybody about your ideas. People are going to steal your ideas. And I'm always telling them, ideas are a dime a dozen. There's nothing that I thought about that no other people even think about. What's going to make the difference is execution. Can you execute? And in order to execute, you're going to need a team. You're going to need to talk to other people to figure out the problem. Maybe it's a physics problem. Maybe it's a chemical problem. But you're going to have to talk to other people and say, hey, I know you're in the field of, even in my case for chemistry, if I have a lotion that's getting too greasy or too oily or, too dry, whatever it is, dries too much of the skin, leaves the skin dry, whatever. It's important for me to talk to other chemists and talk to them about really my problem and tell them what's going on. But when you're dealing with people, when you're dealing in a situation where, because people have been burned so many times, you have companies. We even have this problem where young people are coming in with all of their ideas, supposedly, submitting their ideas to some incubators or places like that, and not only being rejected, but next thing they know, something looking very much like their idea is actually being done by the person they just sent their deck to or their proposal to or their idea to. And so I totally take where they're coming from. So in a situation like that, how do we make sure that people are really going to be rewarded for their great idea that they're putting forward, and even showing great grace by saying, hey, and this is what I've been working on. I've been trying to solve this problem you have right now, specifically you, and this is what I found. It's free for you. I've got many more where that came from. And I like this last idea, because this last idea, what happened is, it seems like the person broadcasted it, which means they're putting everybody on notice, right? That this is my idea. And not only did it ensure that he would be, credited for the good work, but also it opened him to other people, which when you said you got all of these offers for, so maybe that's a way, but I will let you enter that. Maybe not everybody knows how to do that, or maybe there's some other ideas, but this is going to be a concern, I know, of so many young people that are listening to us right now and saying, I love what Charlie's saying. It's really great. And I would love to get on that. But I've got this little hung up, which is this one.
Yes. So culturally, I understand. What the shift needs to be in people's heads is you don't just live in your city. You don't just live in your country. You can be globally connected, and you hit it on the head where it's like you broadcast it by converting your work into some type of media. You now have the potential to reach millions of people with it. Will you do it every time? No, of course not. But you put out the story behind the work that you've done. And so if you had that idea, I have a post on my site that is 33 business ideas that I tried and failed with. And they're all just ideas, right? And that I pursued to some level, and they failed, or I failed, or whatever. But I completely agree with you. Ideas are a dime a dozen. Execution is what matters. But take control, take ownership, and understand that you're in a world of abundance if you connect with it. Like the scarcity mindset comes from like the old kind of like we weren't in a connected place. Like you didn't have opportunities outside of the immediate, village that you're in. It doesn't have to be that way. And in fact, like everybody's connected now. Like you have opportunities in front of you. You just need to broadcast, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm interested in. Here's my story. Here's what I'm working on. Literally every opportunity I now get comes to me because I have broadcasted myself out. I don't have to chase much anymore. Interesting people just come to me because of the work that I've done and shared. And that's not like a luxury. Like I earned that place. But I have seen that over and over and over and over and over. It is irrelevant to the culture because it's just, if you're on the internet, you have the ability with these tools to reach literally 1 million people in 24 hours. And if 1% of those people, which is 10,000 people, are interested in what you're doing, they will either want to follow you or share it. And if 1% of them, which is 100 people, want to hire you, you have created more opportunities for yourself. So I would say the media is the big shift that when people make it, they're like, oh my gosh, because Joe Rogan would not be who he is without broadcasting those conversations, right? He just makes, the tools are available. It doesn't matter if it's YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, it doesn't matter what you call it. You are connected to billions of people now.
Yeah.
And it is your choice to put that story in front of them or not.
Yeah. No, and that's great. And for those people who don't know who Joe Rogan is, because, we're talking to a global audience, and I like to always make sure we're not US centric. Joe Rogan, I believe, at least in the US, is the number one podcaster. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the world, actually, that he's the number one podcaster. And
well, doesn't Africa have one of the top YouTubers? I forget his name, but
yeah, Wode is the top African YouTuber on the continent. Wonderful, wonderful man. I love Wode. Yeah, but so same thing with Wode. You start somewhere. See, that's what people don't understand. I talked to Wode, and he told me, he said, for many years he was just like, when am I going to get more subscribers? And then you have, so that's what people don't understand. And I think also it's this whole concept of you really have to invest the time. And that's something that only you can do. So Charlie, this has been a really great conversation. I have so many more questions for you.
Well, let me jump in on that point just real quick. Sorry to cut you off.
Sure.
It's just time. And that's circling back to the intrinsic motivation, this idea of, your work should feel like play. And people tend to misconstrue and think like work should feel relaxing and leisurely. No, not at all. I think it should be something that you want to master. It is for a lot of people, what you find fun and exciting is torture. I talk to video editors all the time who are like, oh, I hate video editing. I'm like, why do you do it? I love it. I think it's super fun, but I get it. It's like, it's pulling teeth for a lot of people. And that is what you need to find, is the type of, as Jerry Seinfeld said, it's the type of torture that you are in love with. If you can find that, that means your work is play, and you can stay with it over time and become a master. And just as long as you're sharing it through media, good things will come.
I'm sure. I'm so glad you added that, because it is a very good point. And I think that's also what stops our people, and you see, that's why I brought it up that way at first. So many of us think we don't have the luxury of doing what we want, except we need to turn it around and say, what we love doing is actually what's going to get us paid, and paid very well. I think people have a hard time understanding that, because none of us likes doing the same thing, right? I mean, I'm telling you, my cleaning lady, when she cleans, you should see her. I mean, she loves doing it. My nail lady, so me, I was like, really? I will clean my house if I have to, that's for sure. But going from that to loving cleaning a home, but you should see the satisfaction this woman gets from coming in, and then she looks around and everything is sparkling. I mean, it gives her joy. My nail lady, when I come in, by the time I'm done, you know what she does? Ooh la la! You know, she looks at it, she's like having fun. And I'm like, never in a million years would you see me clipping other people's nails, doing this thing and doing. No, but you see, it's like, so I want to tell my young people, because I know every human being has something they love to do, whether they think it's something that they can, that's in the professional realm or not. You really need to start looking at the stuff that you love to do. What did you grow up doing? Did you grow up reading a bunch of sci-fi books? Did you grow up, like stitching football, like soccer balls? Or like you're the best always at knowing the best spot to sit on at the stadium? Whatever it is. I don't know. It seems like you wanted to.
No, like you're totally right. And by the way, there are cleaning people who have TikTok accounts that they make a full-time income. All they do is media. They show what they like doing. That's it. Yes.
So Charlie, I think this is where we're going to end it, because I'm going to put it to work. And so what I think we're going to try to do is, I really would love this idea of seeing all of these young people, starting to, like, for us to give them little assignments to even where to begin. Okay, this is how I've been always thinking about myself. I've got nothing to sell. Perfect. I've got nothing worthy. Well, maybe we can come up with something where it can help them see what it is that they've been doing since they were kids, or for the past few years, and they're just obsessed with it, and that's what they love to do. And then each one of them, then maybe from there, help them find a way to start having media around it. Because when I see so many of our young people, they spend all of this time online, fooling around, doing some stupid nonsense, just being the consumers of the internet. I'm like, guys, this is your tool. So I would love it so much that we go from a place where people are online insulting each other, that's all they use the online for, to like, you know what? You go fool around over there all you want. Me, I'm building my media empire, and it's starting right now. Yeah, right now I only have one follower. It doesn't matter, because that's how it works. It starts with one follower, and then with time we get there. So I would love to see how we can maybe help people get started with this.
Yeah. So I'm secretly working on a book called Paid to Play, which covers how to do this specifically, but to distill it into a simple like homework assignment that a viewer could do. What they can do is they start with their play history, basically, like jot down the things that you like love to do and could just get lost in time doing. Maybe you did it growing up, maybe you still do it. And then serve one person doing that thing and turn it into media so you can serve potentially millions, and then tell the story through that media. I think it's the best thing is always to think in story mode. I'm going to tell this as a story rather than I'm just going to show this thing that I did, because without the context of a story, it doesn't have that oomph that it needs to have. And you're like a natural storyteller, Magatte, but the way you tell a story is, you kind of set up the context, right? This person, great examples actually are pressure washers on YouTube who wash off like people's sidewalks. They'll just show them going up to a person's house. Hey, I saw your lawn had overgrown and the sidewalk's kind of dirty. I thought I would just do this for you for free. And they get like a quick soundbite of a person going, oh, I broke my ankle. I haven't been able to take care of the yard. Totally get it, man. And then it goes to the person, quick time lapse of them cleaning up and the person narrating over it. This guy was so nice. I felt so bad, blah, blah, blah. And, after I got done, it was spick and span. Go to my YouTube channel, see the full video, etc. It's like, I know people who are doing that, who are making a high six figures US and to close to $1 million.
Yes.
Like just from the media, not even from the business. Like
that's the thing. Just people watching it, right?
Yes. Yeah. So go do that. Go serve one person, film it on your phone if you can, or borrow somebody's phone or get them to film you and share it. Share the story and see what happens.
Yes. But you have to stick with it. This is not overnight, but you're fooling around online all day anyway, and when I look around, you've been doing it for 4 years now. So this is really great, because I really like tangible, concrete steps that people can take to change their life, starting with today. And everything starts with the first step, right? I mean, that's how it works. So no, Charlie, this has been great. I'm sure we're going to be reaching out to you for some more, in terms of especially like some of the little steps that people can take. I don't want to take away from what's going to be in the book, but maybe, we can come back to you and be like, Charlie, you're full of it. This part does not work. Or no, Charlie, this part does work. And, maybe we can even feed more stories into, as we're trying this thing. So
do you want me to share one final story to part?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the last story I'll share, because a lot of people, I think some people who are like, oh, it's tech, it's all tech, all media. Let's say you're a person who doesn't want to do tech, doesn't want to make videos. Totally fine. There was a guy named Ryan. He fell in love with this type of app named Foursquare at the time. I don't think they exist anymore, but he just thought it was a cool thing. And he went from door to door to business, and he said, hey, there's this cool new thing. Are you on it? And the business owners would be like, no. He's like, cool, I'll set you up. I'll do it right here. And he did this for about 20 businesses, and then asked all of them to email the CEO of Foursquare on the same day, just being like, hey, I'm on Foursquare. Ryan got me set up. He got hired. Right. He got hired, of course, by Foursquare. And then because he went and worked with them and established himself in that community, he ended up actually getting hired by a guy named Travis Kalanick, and he became the first CEO of Uber. And by the time he was 35, he was a multi-billionaire. And so I think it's just like, look, go create the opportunity, like go talk to businesses and just help them in some way, shape, or form. And good things will come. No one's stopping you from going to create value except yourself. So don't wait for anybody's permission to create it. Don't wait to get hired before and assigned, here's how to create value. Just go do it.
Yeah, no, I think this is wonderful. And so for everyone listening, I would like, if they want more information, we're going to put, some of the books you talked about, Charlie, including your own book. And this is really what we're trying to do. We're trying to build the Cheetah Generation. This is a place where being a cheetah is not about how old you are, how female, male. It's not what it is. It's about a mindset. It's a mindset of those of us who can think entrepreneurially. So regardless of the circumstances we're dealt with, because everybody's going to be dealt with some circumstances, regardless of the circumstances we're dealt with, we'll find a way out. We'll find a way out. Okay. We'll find a way out. And so this is what we're doing. So Charlie, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll be getting back to you. But yeah, personally, I'm just so excited, and I cannot wait for all the people who are listening to us to start sending us, messages. Find us. We're trying to build a community, but of people like this who are just, let's think about what we can do for ourselves, and we have others there to help us out with it as well. So thank you, Charlie.
Excellent. Thanks so much for having me, Magatte.
Yeah. No, this was great.